Spartan Asheville is coming up, so let's take a look at the venue, travel and lodging, what we know about the course, and what I think you should expect if you're racing the Sprinter Super. And the first thing to understand is that Spartan Asheville is not actually in Asheville. The race takes place at Tryon International Equestrian Center in Mill Spring, North Carolina, just southeast of Asheville. For longtime Spartan racers, that distinction matters because this is a very different race from the old Asheville course at Black Mountain. The original Asheville Spartan was held at Grove Sand and Stone, an active quarry near Black Mountain. That course developed a reputation for being one of the harder supers on the schedule. It was rocky, steep, difficult to support logistically, and occasionally a complete mess when the weather turned bad. Those of us who race there tend to remember it fondly, probably because enough time has passed that we've forgotten just how miserable it really was. The Tryon course is nothing like that, especially in the summer. In the fall, when they held the Ultra here at Tryon, it can get messy, but that's another story for another day. One of the best things about Tryon is that getting to the venue is incredibly straightforward. The Equestrian Center is right off the highway. You're not driving another 40 minutes down increasingly questionable rural roads in Asheville, wondering whether your GPS has finally betrayed you. You get off the highway and you're there. And once you arrive, parking is excellent. Tryon is a world-class major equestrian facility, so it was built to handle large events. There's ample parking, and even if you wind up at the outer edge of the parking area, the walk into the festival area is relatively short. That may sound like a minor issue until you've done enough races where parking involves a remote field, a shuttle bus, a mile-long walk, or some combination of the three. Tryon also has permanent infrastructure. There's real bathrooms. That alone probably moves it into the upper tier of Spartan venues. So if you have permanent buildings, established roads, large event spaces, restaurant and facilities designed around spectators and competitors, that's a major plus. That means if you're bringing a spouse, kids, or somebody who has no interest in running through the mud, this is a pretty comfortable venue for them to attend. Travel is easy from Charlotte, Asheville, or Greenville. If the race is the main focus of your weekend, staying somewhere near Tryon or Hendersonville probably makes the most sense. If you want restaurants, breweries, and everything else Asheville has, staying in Asheville and making the drive is probably better. Just remember that despite the name on the race venue, you're not racing in downtown Asheville at all. As we said, Tryon is a sprawling equestrian center. That means horse trails, dirt roads, wooded sections, creek beds, and enough surrounding property for Spartan to build both sprint and super courses comfortably. I've run other trail races here, some up to 50K, and there's a lot of usable terrain. The difference from Black Mountain is that most of it is runnable. That doesn't necessarily mean flat. It means that's probably the most important distinction for this course. That means Tryon is a fast course. Not necessarily an easy course, but a fast course. Unfortunately, this year Spartan has not released a detailed course map, at least not one that gives us useful information, but they have released the elevation profiles, and honestly, that's enough. The sprint looks to be about 3.7 miles with 900 feet of elevation gain. The super is about 6.6 miles with 1,400 feet of gain. So right around those numbers should stop anyone from thinking this is a flat course. There's obstacles thrown onto a horse track and some climbing involved. What you do not have is one long sustained giant climb. Instead, the elevation profile looks like repeated rollers. You climb, give some of it back, climb again, descend, and then have to work your way back towards the finish line. The sprint looks like it's going to start with climbing fairly early. Some up and downs, climb again, and then gradually working towards lower terrain at the finish where they traditionally have dunk wall and a long mud crawl. The super stretches the pattern out a bit. and you get involved in some more wooded sections and some creek. There's some more significant climbs in the second half of the Super, another descent, and then a gradual climb towards the finish line. The maximum grade heres are meaningful. Some sections approach 30 to 40% grade. Those climbs are probably not going to be long, but they're steep enough that you're going to notice them. So I would describe the Asheville course this year this way. This is a course where strong runners can run, but you're going to have your rhythm interrupted periodically. That can become surprisingly expensive over the course of 6 or 7 miles. That means you're going to get moving, hit a hill, crest it, start running again, hit another climb, then possibly arrive at an obstacle with your heart rate already elevated. That is very different from a mountain course where everybody eventually settles into hiking mode. At Tryon, there's always an incentive to start running again, and that's good news. Historically, Spartan has set up a lot of obstacles close to the main equestrian facility, where there's a lot of open area. That's great for spectators because they can actually watch a meaningful portion of the race. But it also means the obstacle layout can become a little front and back loaded. In previous years, the Super used an extended loop away from the festival area to pick up some extra miles before connecting with much of the sprint course. We don't know how it'll route this year, but the elevation profile suggests the same basic idea. Runnable outer terrain, repeated climbs, and then a return towards the main venue. One thing I would watch out for on Saturday is course congestion. This happened last year. The Super runs in the morning, the sprint heats begin later in the day. We've seen situations here where before the Super and afternoon sprint populations overlap, it can create bottlenecks, particularly on steep climbs where passing is difficult. That is one reason I generally recommend getting the earliest start time you can, especially on Saturday. Which leads us to another major factor, August. It's going to be August in North Carolina. The terrain may be runnable. The weather can make this race much harder than the profile suggests due to the humidity. A lot of the equestrian property is exposed, and many of the obstacles around the festival area are out in the sun. So heat and humidity are potentially much bigger factors than the elevation. The good news is there are creek sections and wooded areas. The bad news is that you eventually come back out of them. If the conditions are hot, if the later waves are going to have a very difficult experience from the people who started earlier in the morning due to the weather. And if it rains, that red clay adds another variable entirely because the red clay does not drain well. Dry Tryon is fast. Wet Tryon can become something else. So who is this race for? I actually think Asheville is one of the better Spartan weekends for newer racers. If you've done a sprint and are thinking about moving up to the Super, this is a very reasonable place to do it. You get legitimate mileage and legitimate climbing without jumping immediately into one of the major mountain courses. It's also a good sprint for somebody doing their first race because the logistics are easy, the venue's comfortable, and spectators can actually enjoy themselves. For experienced racers, this can be a fast course. You can push the runnable sections, attack the short climbs, clear the obstacles, and get moving again. Just do not mistake fast for easy. 900 feet in a sprint and 1,400 feet in a Super is enough terrain to punish somebody who goes out too fast. Final thoughts. Spartan Asheville 2026. Easy travel. Excellent parking. Real bathrooms if you need them. A great facility. A course that is considerably more runnable than the old Black Mountain Asheville race, but still has enough climbing to make it interesting. The big variables will be heat, humidity, course traffic and congestion, and how Spartan places the obstacles around the repeated climbs. For newer racers, I think this is one of the better venues on the schedule. For experienced racers, it's a course where you can actually race. And for those of us who remember the quarry at Black Mountain, we appreciate Tryon for what it is, while still saying they should bring Black Mountain back, because they should. See you out on the course.